I've learned that environmental justice is, for me, essentially the right to work, play, and live in clean air. I'd also say that environmental justice is intersectional as well, because it comes in with so many other things that we don't typically consider. When we're talking about environmental justice, we're also talking about, the rights for people in a civil way when we're talking about that as well. Climate justice, all of it goes hand in hand.
How about you, Fajr?
I agree with everything that Chloe said, but just to piggyback off of that, I think that having the same amount of access to that clean air, that clean water, that quality food because of safe soil and things like that is a big part of environmental justice. I feel like the justice portion is about it being fair for everybody.
Hello, I'm Junius Williams, your host on Everything's Political. And today, as usual, we have some nice, interesting conversation for you. And my co-host is Francesca Lawson from Mosaic. We're here today to talk about something we call environmental justice. And it's not just us calling that because that's what it is. But we're going to hear more about that from our guests. We have Fajr, Kegler, and we have Chloe Desir. Very interesting names. We won't get into the name game. Clearly, very unique ladies who have a job to do. So hello to you.
Hello.
Thanks for having us.
Definitely.
Right.
Thank you.
All right. Where do you work?
Where do I work? I work in the Ironbound of Newark, in a 4 square mile community right near the port and right near New York, right?
And I work in the South Ward at South Ward Environmental Alliance. So we're localized to that area particularly.
So what do you guys have in common? Is there one word that you can use?
One word.
Maybe the environment.
Actually,
We organize.
Yes, organized. Yes, that. It's
Yeah,
in
I
the
heard that.
title.
You're organizers.
Yes.
We love that here.
So what is environmental justice to you?
To me, well, since working in the Ironbound, I work with Ironbound Community Corporation. I've learned that environmental justice is, for me, essentially the right to work, play, and live in clean air. I'd also say that environmental justice is intersectional as well, because it comes in with so many other things that we don't typically consider. When we're talking about environmental justice, we're also talking about, the rights for people in a civil way when we're talking about that as well. Climate justice, all of it goes hand in hand.
How about you, Fajr?
I agree with everything that Chloe said, but just to piggyback off of that, I think that having the same amount of access to that clean air, that clean water, that quality food because of safe soil and things like that is a big part of environmental justice. I feel like the justice portion is about it being fair for everybody to have access to what's healthy and what's natural and what isn't tainted by man-made things.
What are the problems with the environment in the East Ward and in the South Ward where you both work?
Air pollution. I feel like particularly in New Jersey and in North New Jersey, air pollution is one of our biggest issues. And I think that organizing community members to not only educate, but like to empower them to speak on what's affecting them. There are thousands and thousands of kids with asthma. Parents don't know why they have asthma. And the reason why is within our control. And a lot of people don't acknowledge that. They don't think that they have a say in what goes on in their communities. In addition to air quality being a major contributor in the South Ward specifically, I think that water equity is a big thing. Yes, the mayor has done a lot of things to try and minimize the effects of lead being inside of our pipes, lead service lines and things of that nature, but all is not complete. There's always more work to do. There's more work to be done there. So people who are being affected by the negligent ways of old architecture and things of that nature. So I think that that's also a really big factor, because that also contributes to a lot of the health problems that we're seeing nowadays.
How did you get involved?
I guess word of mouth. Like I've been, like I mentioned before, I've been organizing for a while and in different aspects. So I was kind of recommended to the position. I like applied and things like that, but I was taking a break from school, and I wanted to get into something productive. So I kind of just found my way into this role, but I'm glad that I did.
Was there something in your life or in your family's life that made you come to say, well, I have to become a change agent in this area?
I would say yes. Shortly before I began working with Suya, I had lived in Newark from the time I was born all the way up until I was about 19, 20. I'm 21 now. And my mom had just moved out to Edison. And I was like, I'm going to stay in Newark. And my whole family was like, but why? Like, she's moving to a better place. Getting out the hood is like a big thing in my community. And I used to work with the city, so I was at City Hall, and I understood a lot about the different perspectives of the residents who want the city to do more and the city who's trying to do the most that they can do. And something about having seen both sides, especially like working in administration and organizing, made me want to be a part of the change, because I saw it happening. It may not have been happening as fast as people would like it to happen, but I wanted to stay in Newark and do something about it so that people wouldn't want to run away from Newark in the future.
And Chloe, what's your analysis of the problem?
Analysis of the problem of environmental racism?
You introduced another word.
Oh.
I was
We've
talking
got
about
water equity, environmental justice,
Yeah.
climate justice, and
Yeah.
environmental racism. So
I mean, yeah, the reason why we have inequity with the clean water that we don't have is because of environmental racism.
Definitely.
I think those things go hand in hand overall. I feel like when it comes to air quality and air pollution, that's something that we focus on as well, considering the fact that we have so many emitters of pollution when we talk about incinerators that are burning trash not only from New Jersey but also from New York. And then we have 3 power plants in the midst of a chemical corridor, is what they call it, in the Ironbound, and the proposal of a 4th one coming in, which is a problem in and of itself. I think that all of those things add to the reason why we have statistics like 1 in 4 children in Newark having asthma.
what brought you to this work?
What brought me to this work? I mean, the honest answer is Indeed.
Hey, maybe they should be a sponsor of a podcast.
Yes, definitely. That's so funny.
But I was listening to you, and we actually have a similar way to get into organizing. Actually, after when I was going into high school, I became more aware of things that were happening politically. When I was in high school was when Trump was elected.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was definitely a spark for me to become more aware of what's going on with my community, especially when I graduated college. And while I was in college, I actually was doing internships in administration and in government, and I felt like the other side was a bigger agent of change, to be frank. And I felt like I was able to do more hands-on work with the perspective that I have, which is very, like, I mean, some would say radical, but I think it's right in this realm of what we need to be getting done.
Yeah, you gotta be radical to make a change. You can't. The old ways don't work.
So what do you do
What do I do now?
as an organizer? Question to both of them.
I
Both
would
of
say my main job is to inform people. I feel like when I inform people about what's going on, it sparks that awareness in them to want to do things to create that change that we would want to do when we have a problem.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Information is key. A big thing that I do is outreach, because there are kids everywhere.
What does that look like? What does the outreach look like? And I know
Outreach
that's probably
is
very normal for
it's
you.
so
But
extensive. It's so extensive. You have an audience. There's a target audience. You have to know where the audience is. You got to know how to get through to them. You got to know if they're gonna respond and how to engage with them once you have their attention. So primarily we work with schools, schools and like youth organizations, programs that like after school programs that deal with young people, teens, young adults, and things of that nature. But we got to make it interesting. So my job is just that, to make environmental justice and civic engagement seem interesting, seem fun, seem relevant to young people, which is a challenge.
how do you do it? What's some of the pathways you found in? What's resonated with the kids?
Social media.
Yeah.
Social media is a big one.
I mean, I'd even say like things that people don't even consider as environmental justice. I feel like recently, actually, I was in a panel talking about fast fashion and the impacts that fast fashion has. Everyone's ready to go shopping. Everyone's ready to buy clothes, but are they ready to know where it goes after they give it away? It ends up in a landfill somewhere, and it adds to more of the climate problems that we have now, environmental justice problems that we have now, things like that.
Yeah. Like explaining to young people just how they are impacted in the little ways that they don't see and just how much they play a role. It definitely changes their perspective of environment in general, because some people think, oh, if I'm not littering, I'm not contributing to the climate being bad. If I'm not doing the big things like recycling. If I recycle my bottles, then I'm good. But there's so many other things, so many little nuances about your day-to-day lives that people don't see as having a major impact on the climate, the environment.
Well, say some more about that. What are some of the other little things that people do?
I recently found out, Chloe and I were just talking about this, that gas stoves actually emit more fumes than, I think it's a semi-truck.
Yeah.
Which I think is crazy.
There's a huge movement at some of my work intersects with this now, but there's a huge movement to get rid of gas stoves.
Yeah, like just like home
Electrifying
appliances. I think washing machines emit VOCs. So
What's a VOC?
VOCs are basically chemicals that are emitted usually from like factories or corporations that use machines that take a lot of energy, usually machines that are in spaces where it's like you're going to work in a hot or humid environment. Those are the type of environments that have VOCs that their employees are emitting, but also residents in nearby areas are emitting. If that factory or if that business is next to a school, the kids are going to be breathing in those VOCs and things like that. So it's particles. You can't see it, you can't smell it, but it's there.
Is it something that we test for?
Oh man,
how do we ask questions about it?
There's so many things we should be testing for.
Yeah, like we have like Suya uses air monitors, so we have air monitors located in different places around the South Ward, but things like that are able to tell you exactly how much particulate matter is in the air, what kind of chemicals are present, which ones are detrimental to your health and which ones are not, whether it's extremely high or average on certain days, like when was it a forest fire in Canada happened? All of the air monitors were like in the red, like way worse than typical, and on a typical day it's actually higher than it's supposed to be. So,
and that's a total of all the things that we're already dealing with right now. Like I had mentioned earlier, like even when you were talking about the truck counts, we had even done one as well, because being by the port, you're passing by thousands of trucks every day.
So many trucks.
So you're talking about particulate matter, which is also something you can't even see. And as soon as you breathe it in, it's in your bloodstream.
Literally.
Yeah. So what are you asking the young people to do? Now that you've gotten this information to them, what's the next step?
Oh, man. I mean, for me, I say one of my things that I love to tell people is be aware of who you need to hold accountable. That's definitely the biggest thing. Making sure you know who are the people on the board of these power plants and who are the people that you need to be reaching out to when the air smells bad. Because there's numbers that you can call, actually. And when people say it smells bad in New Jersey or in Newark, they're just smelling environmental racism. That's what it really is.
I'm going to use that line with my daughter. She asked while we were in the car the other day. Hey, mommy, why does it smell bad here?
Yeah,
Great.
it's
Yeah.
so much thing like waste management, things like that.
Yeah.
People don't think that like there's something you can do about it. Like a lot of people just drive by like, oh, it stinks. Let's hurry up and get out of this area. That's
Mhm.
that's the mindset when it's really like it stinks. What could we do about it?
Right.
Like who? Like she said, who could we call? What happens next? Like once I make this call, what are they gonna do about it? So knowing the hierarchy, knowing who to call, email, send letters to, who to get together to make a bigger impact when you do call, email, or send those letters is very important.
Because they don't expect it.
They don't.
No.
They don't think that you're going to do anything. And that's a big part of environmental racism, too. A lot of corporations choose specifically overburdened communities to put these dangerous facilities because they know that the people there aren't educated enough to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's sad.
Do you have a game plan in each of your organizations to deal with these things that you're talking about?
Yeah, I would say so. Right now, even since I've been working with ICC for the past 2 years now, Passaic Valley Sewage Commission is actually the sewage plant, power plant that's trying to add a fourth power plant to the Ironbound. And so what we've been doing is we've been going to their public meetings, we've been addressing them directly, telling them we have other alternatives, safer alternatives than building another power plant in an already overburdened community. Because 4 square miles in the Ironbound, that's one power plant per mile.
Mm.
And then you have a fat rendering facility, which you're going to smell on some days. And then you have your incinerator that's burning all of the trash that we could be composting.
Yes.
Maybe.
Another definition.
Yeah. Doing all of those things as well, and as well as reaching out to people and letting them know about all of these things that are happening, because the technique that they use is to try to make sure nobody knows, right? So when they're legally mandated to bring out the public notice for these meetings, what are they putting them in? Like small little ads in the corners of newspapers, all these different things. So bringing out the people to be active in that way.
What is composting and why don't they do it?
People are working very hard to make sure we don't compost, okay?
It's crazy. It's so crazy.
Composting. So essentially what we can do, well, I think it's important to know what incineration is first and foremost, because most people don't know that a lot of our trash gets burned and turned into energy. And the way that happens is you're burning all of the trash, heating it up, which leads to the bad smells and lights up a small percentage of homes, probably about like 20 to 30,000 homes. But even in Newark itself, that's 300,000 people. But with composting, you're able to throw out things like food scraps and things that you can turn into a component of soil. So we can have more green spaces here in Newark, right? Have more things that are renewable and useful, as opposed to incineration.
What's interesting to me is I'm hearing you talk about organizing, and I've been spending the past few years with Junius and listening to his stories about organizing in the same space. And I'm just taken back to your first days organizing in Newark Junius. Is anything that they're saying kind of ring true to the way that you reached communities?
We didn't have computers. And so organizing was knocking on people's doors. And if you couldn't stand what you're going to find when the door opens, you don't want to be an organizer. So sufficient enough people were called to invite us in, and we talked about things, and some kind of organization, component was set up with the New Community Union project. So I'm wondering, do you have that level of organizing? Are you getting together groups of people to continue protest or some kind of agenda for change?
Yes, definitely. Like when we see things that are happening in the now, something needs to be done now, we definitely do things like protests, signs that say we need clean air, we deserve clean air, we need clean water, we deserve clean water in our communities. We get groups of people inside of like the office just to educate, inform. There's one thing to give out information to people, but it's a whole other thing to explain the complexities of the situation. some people, you can tell them something and they can be like, oh, wow, that's crazy. But like, there are other people who you can sit down with and they're interested in knowing exactly the steps to make a change. They're interested in knowing just how deep it goes, as opposed to just saying like our air is dirty. But knowing that like your son, your brother, your sister probably has asthma because our air is dirty. Heart disease is a result of our air being dirty and things like that. So we get people together. We educate them. Sometimes we do protest. We speak out for sure.
The rallies and marches are definitely still happening.
Yes.
They're alive and well. I've done my fair share of talking to a lot of strangers. You know, you talk to 100 people and you bring 10 people out, right? Out of that 100. I feel like I've been able to really connect with a lot of people. Like, you know, you have the people that you had said, you know, that are like, oh, they may not feel the connection to them specifically, but when you're able to organize them and talk to them and explain what's going on and how it impacts them directly, then that's what really makes the change.
What role does your computerization of communication play in those two areas? Are people more interested in talking about things via Facebook as opposed to in person?
I'd say it's more convenient. So there are a lot of things that have changed since the pandemic. And one thing that I noticed that like I don't think is gonna ever go back to the way it was is like meetings. And sometimes it's just way more convenient to meet virtually. And you can get the information across. You can get the interactions with people, the engagement with people through a Zoom meeting. There are a lot of things that you can't get when it comes to like being face to face with people, but that's why we also have events and we have get-togethers where we meet at spaces and we discuss things on like a grander scale. But when it comes to like small repetitive meetings where we're just making sure that the information is there for the community to access and making sure that people understand the depths of what we're doing while we're monitoring the air and what they can do to help us when it comes to telling them how they can sign petitions and things like that. Being online and being able to access people via social media, via video conferences is very convenient and it makes it more efficient in that way.
I would kind of say it's a bit of a toss-up for me, in my experience, because you're definitely able to spread the message out much further, and you're able to connect with people that are in a whole different world than you may be in. But also at the same time, if you're a community organizer, it's not going to get better than being on the ground.
Yeah, it's limited. It's definitely limited.
Yeah.
Because I've been the type to knock on doors too. Like I used to have to campaign when I worked at City Hall and knock on doors and giving out flyers and stuff. Some people you really just have an impression on just existing. Like sometimes you exchange energies with people and that has an effect on just how important what you say is to them. So
I would say that it's made organizing more accessible, being able to organize more accessible, but not always accessible for the people that you're trying to organize.
Definitely, yeah.
That is what I would say. Because even with the meetings that I was talking about that we bring out for folks to, you know, express their grievances about what's going on, some of these meetings are only through Zoom. So if
that's
somebody's
not something that
neighbor or whatever the case may be doesn't have a laptop, a computer, like a phone of some sort, how are they going to get there? What are they going to be able to do, you know?
Let's switch to the national scene. What's your opinion and impression about the whole issue of environmental justice nationally?
I would say I feel like overall, we've definitely made a lot of progress, but there's still a lot of steps to be made. I think now that we've got a lot more progressive people representing us in the government now, and now we have, you know, a White House Environmental Justice Advisory Council to talk about things that are going on and give advice to the president about how we can progress on climate action. Those are definitely great things. And even in New Jersey specifically, we just passed the environmental justice law. So now we have to have environmental justice analysis being done before new proposed plants are coming in that are going to be in overburdened communities, right? But I would say there's still more work to be done because we still need to be regulating the industries that we have now if we want to change into a clean energy state and a clean energy country.
I was going to ask, just with your work, are you talking with other cities to see if the experience you're having here in Newark is happening on other parts of the country? How does that building work?
Oh, yeah. Well, for starters, a lot of these incinerations are large corporations that are having places to set up shop all over the country. I've met people that are from Florida, from Indianapolis, from California, and they've been able to connect with me on things that we've been dealing with as an environmental justice community and how they've been able to organize and bring people together to spread awareness about these problems that we're having.
Same company, different place.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah,
Literally.
definitely. And it's just a lot of places, any place where there's an overburdened community, there's probably going to be environmental racism. Like I was just on a Zoom earlier today where they were talking about the statistics around Maryland and their air quality. And what is it, Prince George County, their air quality is about like 70% over what it's supposed to be. And it's just a norm in places where there are minorities, low-income communities. They put these corporations there. If there's a franchise like Amazon, there's probably one. Inside of all the places where it's urban, there's a lot of people with a little bit of money.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you have a future?
Oh.
This is a
So okay,
perfect one.
so
This is a doomsday.
yeah.
The future. I mean, I think in terms of how do I think the future looks, bleak. Am I optimistic about it? Yes, because I feel like I've been able to meet so many beautiful people that are so willing to do the work and ready to get the ground running on how to turn back the doomsday clock that we have going way farther forward.
So I'm a trained actor. So we're gonna go with yes and.
Oh,
I think yes and there's limits to it. So like there's a future for sure. Like she said, how good that future looks, I'm not sure. But I do have hope that young people who I work with all the time are gonna be a lot more creative than we are. I feel like every generation is gonna have these new innovative strategies to come up with things that we might have messed up. To be quite honest with you, if it's things that we're doing wrong, they're gonna be affected by it and they're gonna want to change it. So I feel like starting to build a new generation of change makers is like what gives people hope for the future, because young people not knowing what's going on is what's scary.
Somebody mentioned recycling really fast. Is recycling real? Go.
I gotta be honest out here. I gotta be so honest. It's not real.
I don't think it is.
Less than 5% of the things we recycle actually get recycled.
Yeah. And I've recently found out about this thing called chemical recycling.
Even worse.
Have you heard about that?
It's literally burning.
It's fake. It's like let's say I get a plastic bottle and I send it to the recycling people. They're gonna burn it and turn it into a gas. And they're transforming it from one thing to another, and they're calling that recycling. But it's not recycling. When you give your bottles away, you're assuming it's gonna come back inside maybe a sturdier bottle. But that's not. It's not what happens. It's getting either destroyed, because a lot of things taint recycling bins. Like if you put one wrong thing inside of like a batch of recycling, usually the whole thing has to go. So like less than 5 or 4%, it kind of discourages you from even wanting to recycle.
I would want to discourage you from recycling, to be honest with you, because I feel like what we should be doing is trying to push more towards putting responsibility on the people that produce the plastic. The people that are producing the plastic are the ones that are giving us the trash that we have at the end. I would say we should transition more towards encouraging people to compost, encouraging people to make sure that we can get legislation that says maybe we need our producers to think of other alternatives to provide the things that we need.
So we just said recycling. Is it better to learn how to recycle a bottle or stop buying something just to wear on a date tonight?
Both. You know, it's so funny you say that too, because I'm unlearning right now myself. because we're all so influenced because of social media, actually, to buy,
Oh yeah, it's one click.
to
Yeah.
consume.
One click now.
Yes, I think I've been having this mantra that I've been working on for a while since I heard it. I have enough. I have enough.
That's a good one. I need
have
to adopt
enough.
that.
Like, I can look into the closet that I have and work with what I've got because,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I think the second one. I definitely think that not buying just to have for one day, because minimalism is a thing. There are people who are happy who live minimalistic lives, and thinking about the realities of recycling is stressful, but it can be a lot less stressful for you to just work with what you've got.
And not even just what with you got, you can look into the community that you have as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
That part.
I think one of the biggest things that people have been, well, corporations and bigger companies have been able to do is to push individualizing ourselves instead of looking out to other resources that we may have.
Definitely. And thrifting.
Yeah.
Thrifting it's been a rise in thrifting since I think since like post-COVID. There's so many people who just like the secondhand market is it's going.
booming.
It is. It's
Wild.
booming. It's
I'm a
metro
mom
booming.
of little kids. Like,
Yeah, and it's sustainable. It's a good practice to have, and it's a combat to fast fashion. So thrifting and working with what you have.
That's a good title. I have enough.
yeah.
Well, thank you.
Of course.
This has been enlightening.
Of course. Thank you for having us.
Very glad
It's
to
been an
know that
honor.
the organizing lamp is still lit
Yes.
in your communities, and that you ladies are turning it up bright.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
All right. This is Everything's Political, and we'll see you the next time. Everything's Political podcast is sponsored by the Center for Education and Juvenile Justice and supported by the Terrell Foundation and the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, and listeners like you. It is produced by Mosaic Strategies and Dreamplay Media, with theme music by Anthony Ant Jackson. If you like this episode, please subscribe to the Everything's Political podcast on YouTube, press the red button, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you can connect with us on Facebook and Instagram, do so. See you next time, and remember, stay political.